2 passports you can get for less than $100,000 by donation. Obviously, there's a lot more passports you can get for less than $100,000 if you have a family connection. And we're doing this legally. We're not paying some guys Slovenia $5,000 to do our passport. Please don't do that. Be safe. If you have a grandparent from Hungary, if your parents are from Moldova, you can get a Moldovan passport, for example. Something like that would be significantly cheaper. Let's say $5,000 or $10,000 legally if you pay some lawyer to help you do that. Or your parents are from Uruguay. I have a client who was Australian, but his dad is from Uruguay, and he got a Uruguayan passport. He doesn't use it, but he has it, and it's a great passport to have. That's through descent or through living somewhere. You can live somewhere 5 years, get the passport from that country, and then that will basically be for free. These are the ones you can get by actually paying. They are both in Africa. They're the countries of Sao Tome and Principe and Botswana. Now, these are not countries, because I mentioned them a few times, these are not countries where you're going to go and live in. These are not passports that you will use to travel. But just like Vanuatu, which I used to be really not a fan of Vanuatu in any way, until I saw what kind of clients were interested in Vanuatu, until I saw what kind of use cases Vanuatu had. For example, I had a billionaire client who literally has almost $1 billion, and he wanted Vanuatu as his third passport, just to have a place for a World War III, just to have a place to buy super cheap land, just to have a passport that maybe he needs to use sometime in the future for some chaos around the world, just if he wants to go and separate himself from everything, wants to build a beach house somewhere. He got Vanuatu, and I thought, wait, there's actually a lot of people interested in Vanuatu. And there's also a lot of people interested in countries that you don't necessarily go and live in, you're not going to invest in, but for less than $100,000, you can just have your first, second passport, which is an opening to more passports. Just like me, I got St. Kitts and Nevis citizenship, I renounced my US citizenship, and I got that taste of having a second passport. I got that taste of, ooh, I can actually do this. I can actually get a bunch of passports. I can start a business somewhere, get citizenship by merit. I can check my family tree, see what I have there. I can see other countries by investment, and slowly I started looking at more and more options, and you end up with like 4 or 5 different passports. And I've seen portfolios of my clients that have 3, 4, 5 different passports that they've collected over time. And this could be the first one. You can go from having 1 passport to having 2 passports. And I think that's the future. Every single millionaire around the world should have 2 passports by 2030 to truly protect yourself. In the case of Sao Tome and Principe, for example, you can do it through Dubai, straight up donation. You're not going to use it to travel unless you go to like Malaysia or somewhere nearby in Africa. Botswana would actually be my favorite in this case. They have UK access, but they literally just lost it after they announced this program. So the UK is very anti citizenship by investment. They're happy to take illegal immigrants, but no. Vetted, due diligence, millionaires, no, those no. So Botswana is actually a pretty stable country. They haven't had a coup. It's a pretty developed country for African standards. Good access relatively to, for example, Brazil, Southern Africa, some Asian countries, Russia, for example. You could have it as just your first, second passport. You spend 100 grand, instead of buying a Mercedes, you buy a passport, you have another country, maybe you have the African Union in the future, maybe you're going to go invest there, maybe you start some business later on when you need that passport, maybe you just want to use it for asset protection. Botswana, it will probably change in the future, isn't seen as a country that sells passports, as other countries like Liberia, for example, because all these African countries, they have their programs. They have citizenship by exception. They have citizenship by donation. But you have to look at the level of legitimacy of these programs. And also, if you're actually going to go and renew that passport. In some cases, you can go for a program, and in 10 years, you go renew your passport. And in 5 years, you go renew your passport, and you can't renew it because the administration changed, because they don't honor it anymore. So you have to be careful. For example, passports like Eswatini could also be pretty useful, although you're not going to go live in Eswatini. You just use it as the perfect plan B. So these two are basically breaking that barrier of $100,000 to get citizenship for you to then get other citizenships. You could get Caribbean, $250K for St. Kitts, $200K or $230 for Antigua, $200K for Dominica. Once you have those, you can start getting others, let's say by a golden visa program in Panama, golden visa in Portugal, although the timeline is changing. You can get some other citizenship by living somewhere long term. You can give birth later on, and then you start building this crazy plan B, C, D, E, F, and I'll start getting you into the momentum of choosing countries around the world where they're not going to tax you, where they're not going to chase you all over the world, that you can have that perfect plan B. Also, if you want to get relatively budget-friendly passports or passports that you might never thought you could get, but then you just get it and you're done with it. For example, Spain. Although Spain, with taxes, you have to be extremely careful because there is an exit tax, there's a wealth tax, taxes are extremely high, so be careful about living in Spain. But there's some people that are married to a Spanish citizen, or they're married to a Colombian. Let's say they have a relationship with a Colombian woman and they're going to get married in the future. That Colombian woman can go to Spain, live in Spain 2 years and be registered, get her Spanish passport in 2 years, and then be married to you, living in Spain 1 year, and then you can get a Spanish passport, an EU passport. Let's say you're from the US, you marry a Colombian, you marry a Mexican. Also, Mexico is a solid choice. 2 years being married to a Mexican citizen. So you could literally build a full portfolio of your wife or your husband if you're a woman. So you could literally marry a Mexican citizen, be 2 years with them, get the Mexican passport. They could live 2 years in Spain. They could get the Spanish passport. And then you, after 1 year, get the Spanish passport. Now you have, for example, US, Mexico, and Spain. You have EU. You have a great country in Latin America. You can renounce your US citizenship if you want. And you built a solid plan B and C without even spending a couple $1,000s. So just because I talk a lot about citizenship by donation, by investment, by merit, spending more than $500,000 on a passport doesn't necessarily mean that I also use other options. I see many more countries launching citizenship by donation or investment programs at less than $100,000. I see a lot of countries coming up with $75,000, $95,000 programs. In the near future, they're not going to be the best passports. They're not going to be the best countries, but at least we will see more and more competition for millionaires like you and me. If you want to see the countries that my clients, millionaires all over the world, choose for more freedom to protect their family and protect their finances, check out this video right here on the best countries, the 10 best, plus many other honorable mentions that you should check out as a millionaire. Check them out right here.